The big thing about blockchain in banking is that it's reinventing the infrastructure that enables us to transact globally between institutions in real time. And that's a fantastic change to the whole back office infrastructure of banking. It's going to revolutionize not just banking though, it's going to revolutionize governments, it's going to revolutionize the identity of people, it's going to revolutionize the whole way in which we think about how we record transactions. And that's going to be something that we're going to see for the next decade, changing everything. Well, a good example of how it's going to change everything is that I'm here in New York for a meeting with the United Nations on digital identities. And the aim is to get 1.9 billion people who currently have no identity because they have no home, no fixed abode, no signature, they can't read, they can't write, and give them a digital identity based on a mobile phone using a blockchain protocol structure. That's the aim. Whether we can achieve that in the near term is a challenge. We'll certainly achieve it in the long term. For the incumbent institutions in banking and finance, there's a real challenge right now to digitalize all of their operations. I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Digital Bank, which is all about how to convert from physical to digital. And actually, the urgency of doing that is becoming more and more obvious every day as we see the open sourcing of financial services using apps, APIs, analytics, blockchain, mobile, all the technologies that are currently enabling fintech companies to open source everything. And if a bank doesn't step up to that challenge, then they will disappear. But an awful lot of banks are actually saying, you know what, we can actually get to grips with this, we can incorporate this into our operations. A decade from now is obviously something that's difficult to predict. It always is when you look at the future, but I imagine it will be a world where we don't even think about paying. We just live our lives, and constructed around our lives is a digital support system that we don't think of as the internet. It's just there. So we don't think about searching for things. We just get answers. We don't think about paying for things. We just get and consume. We don't think about going out and actually trying to find stuff. It's just there for us. So the whole digital platform, the internet, is all around us, in our cars, in our homes, in our lives, in our pockets, in our purses. It's just everywhere. And at that point, you know, the whole idea of science fiction where Captain Kirk never takes out his wallet is realized. You know, you never see Captain Kirk pay for anything. You never see anything in the Star Wars world involving money. It doesn't need money because no one pays for anything anymore. It's just around them as digital debits and credits. There's two really big challenges for the average person when we look at fintech and the future. One is understanding the technology itself. So when we talk about blockchain, for example, it's incredibly complicated. It's really for rocket scientists right now. And it's actually, when you look at what it's doing, it's really simple. It's just a shared database on the internet. But the way in which people talk about it, the way in which it's constructed, you have to read volumes of books and spend a lot of time talking to people to really get to understand that innately in your nature as something that's really something you can talk about yourself without having to be challenged with thinking about what it means. And that's really why I think a lot of banks have a problem, because their leadership teams have no idea about technology. They don't immerse themselves in these areas. They haven't got the language, they haven't got the depth. They delegate this to people that they think can deal with it. And the problem that leads to is that if they delegate it, the people dealing with it are not actually leading the bank. And converting a bank to be a digital bank is actually a leadership challenge. That's what half of the new book's all about. It's all about leadership. And 94% of banks' chief executive council leadership teams have no technology background. That's according to an Accenture study just at the end of last year. They have no professional technology expertise. That's a disaster waiting to happen. You've got to have technologists at the leadership team of the bank. If you don't, you're going to fail. Everyone's got really excited about fintech in the last couple of years, and there's been a lot of hype. Unfortunately, when you have hype, you end up with a bubble, and if you have a bubble, it's always going to burst. And so we will see failures in fintech. And a lot of the companies that have been discussed as being unicorns, billion-dollar plus valuation companies, will disappear, implode, and go away. It's all down to, do they have the managerial team, the technical capabilities, the commercial acumen to really be successful? Now, there are some that will be globally successful, and that's why everyone's excited. Because just like there's a dot-com bust, You still have Amazon, you still have Alibaba, you still have Google. There are successful, massive companies that corner the marketplace. That's what's going to happen with fintech. There will be global brand names that appear, and for those who invested in those global brand names, they'll reap massive rewards. Unfortunately, there will still be a lot of failures along the way. You have to live with that. The biggest thing right now that is actually hugely going to change our planet is that technologies are including everybody in transacting and transmitting money and value. So today, only 2 billion people actually have bank accounts, but there's 7 billion people on that planet. What do the other 5 billion people do? Well, they actually spend a lot of money to move their cash between cities and villages. And what's happening in Africa, Philippines, Indonesia, Latin America is we're suddenly seeing that people can transact and transmit money through a mobile network for almost nothing in real time immediately. So you've now got 7 billion people who can not only send money, but they can receive money and also sell on their mobile phone. Suddenly, every mobile phone becomes a point of sale. That's absolutely transformational for this planet. I call it the fourth revolution in human civilization, because for the first time, everybody on the planet can communicate one-to-one, peer-to-peer, in real time, globally, immediately, for almost nothing. That's transformational.